Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by my buddy Myron.
Once again, here at the headquarters of the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, we're going to give you a wonderful show today, folks. We've had a great time at wrestling last night, and there's been some great things on wrestling TV also. So let's talk about them.
Yeah, man, we're going to talk about that. But before we, get into that, man, I want to, look, we've talked on obviously on the wrestling stuff. We've done that for years at this point. But yes, we've talked about like other projects we're going to do. I've done a little bit of football stuff recently, and I kind of suggested this something right before we started recording about some cool stuff I would like to do, maybe with some Star Wars or some comic book stuff. And remember, if you're a podcast listener, all of that stuff's not going to be on the podcast feed. The podcast feed itself will still continue just to be the wrestling, if that's your thing. But over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, or just go to go onto YouTube and search Tapped Out Podcast Network. You'll find us. It'll come up. And, man, we'd appreciate it if you're, going over there, liking the page, subscribing, turning your notifications on, hell, even becoming a member so you get all the stuff early and all, like, hey, this particular episode, we're recording it on a Sunday due to work schedules and things like that. So you would have this today, like on a Sunday, versus, if you just were listening like or watching it regular, you're not going to get it till Tuesday. So always we suggest that you become a member and get that stuff early. And then, of course, there's some stuff that I only put out. Those daily mind dumps only go to the members over there behind the paywall. So
TPN, the Tapped Out Podcast Network.
Yeah, there you go.
Topping. Yeah, we'll work on that later, folks. That was a little on the air improvisation.
Yeah, Tapped Out Pod is always going to be our social media stuff, so give us a follow and stuff like that. But I meant to do a segment on this one for the paid members, but we had so much going on between Friday night and Saturday, and all that kind of stuff. Because last night we went to Anarchy, which we will discuss later in the show. So stick around if you're a Indy fan or one of our Georgia listeners who loves Georgia Indy talk stuff, that specifically. And also right after we do this, we're recording something that's going to be behind that paywall for a few days, and then drop later this week.
I'm so excited about this because it's something I haven't seen.
Yeah,
you've seen it. It'll be my reaction to it and your observations on it.
Yeah,
that's going to be cool.
Well, now let's start right out of the gate, man, and jump into something that everybody seems to be talking about. That happened on Smackdown this past Friday. The Sami Zayn segment's what everybody's calling it with the Bloodline. I don't know, and it was funny. I was listening to Busted Open the following day, and it was just it was just awesome to hear that with all the other things that. And listen, we're going to discuss all this. Paige/Saraya's debut, Mox winning the title, all these other things that happened all week, and a lot of people on Busted Open were calling this segment the best thing they saw all week.
I watched the segment an hour ago. Okay. For the first time, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, it was still really good, really entertaining. I bought the whole thing, even like I said, being prepared to see it. Everybody told me. I read about it the rest of the week or yesterday, and I was captivated by the whole thing. They did a really good job. I never had given Roman that much credit, and once again, I think they're going to make me like Sami Zayn, Nick. I have never liked Sami Zayn, but they're doing such a good job with this.
Listen, it's the little things that Sami does to me, for me. And I'm not, I'm not saying you should think he's great. I'm saying for me, the things that I like is like when they're like, go back and again, you're going to have to go back and watch the segment again. Like when they all come out from the back and that music's playing and Sami's doing that little like shuffle dance thing. I noticed
that, yes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff to me is like Sami is trying so hard to be cool, to fit in with those guys.
Yes.
Because they're all cool. Don't get, they're as I think in one of his segments, he was like, he's down, he's hip, he's trying to be cool with them and stuff, but, he's being Sami. And that's the stuff I love about him. And
his facial reactions when they ripped that T-shirt off of him, Nick, the disappointment in his eyes, it looked like somebody had just killed his puppy. Oh, it was good.
That was a kid that wanted to be part of the cool group so bad. and like an instant moment, he thought he was in, and then they took it away. Right back to the sheer joy of him being back in when he gets the the shirt from Roman. And look, let's not just sell this all for Sami. Like, the other pieces of this puzzle, I think did extremely well. Jay being the one who looks like he hates his. Listen. By the way, I can't tell them apart half the time. I'm assuming it's Jay's the one who does it.
I know who they are now. When there's a Sami Zayn segment, Jay is the one acting like he hates him.
Right.
Okay. The other
Jimmy likes him. Yeah. They're doing handshakes and shit like that.
Yeah, he's over there, and the guy that's standing on stuff, and Jay is selling it, because this is the best thing about this. You've got all these guys in the ring. You want to watch Sami. You want to keep up with what Jay's doing, because Jay's being hateful. Paul Heyman is talking. Roman is making facial expressions now. They have totally taken this Roman Reigns character over the last 2 years and made him into someone who uses facial expressions, someone who talks for effect. He's a character now. When he was a babyface, he was just too stiff. He was unlikable. And now as a heel, he's doing such a good job, which makes me think when he does turn babyface, it's going to be the biggest babyface turn in a long time.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
He's doing such a good job.
And I mean,
don't forget Jimmy too. And Solo.
Well, that's the one to me that so in the segment itself, I think the masterpieces are Jay, Sami, and Roman.
Yes.
Throughout the rest of the show, then we have the segment with Ricochet and Madcap, basically teasing and mocking Sami, and Solo. Like, he is just like a total hitman. I mean, he just boom comes in, sticks up for Sami, and like shows like. I think to me, that was the confirmation of, okay, Sami's a part of the Bloodline, because Solo just defended him like he was one of the Usos.
Yeah, that was cool.
And so that was a cool moment. That was a very cool moment. And one of the other things I wanted to address about the Bloodline was, I know this past week there was a lot of people pushing back because, we record off cycle. So the NXT happened after our last show. And they stripped Solo of the North American Championship. And a lot of people were like, well, why bother even putting it on him? It doesn't make any sense if you're going to strip it for him from a week later. And I will kind of agree with some of the but then they let him defend it on Smackdown as well. And then they stripped him NXT. Here's my argument to that. That's an NXT title. So there were no, and I'm throwing up some air quotes if you're listening to us. There were no NXT officials at SmackDown to stop him from defending it on SmackDown. So when it rolled around to NXT and they stripped him, here's what I think they did accomplish, though. So he doesn't have a title like the rest of them, but you look at Solo like, no, he was a champion. They just took it from him for whatever reason. So he is championship material.
And yes, he's credible now.
Correct.
Much more credible. You gave him something to like introduce himself with. He got the pictures with the belt. He stood around the other guys who all had titles. Looks good. I can't complain about anything they're doing. I watched every hour of programming. I watched Raw, SmackDown, and NXT this week.
Because here's the thing, Myron. You're not going to put one of the other two major belts on him. You're not going to put You're not taking Lashley's U.S. title and putting it on him. No. And you could, but I don't know that I would. I wouldn't beat Gunther and take the IC title off of him for Solo.
What they did was brilliant.
So yeah,
they made him look more distinguished, more qualified, and then he didn't lose the belt; he was stripped of the belt.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was all great steps and strides into bringing the here's the only other question, and I put this out to the listeners: tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know. One of my things with wrestling has always been, and it's not just this specific topic, I'm just curious. Come Monday, Sunday, we're recording on Sunday. We've all heard like, oh my God, it was one of the best segments that they've done on SmackDown in a long time. Blah 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 blah. My question was, is everybody saying that because everybody's saying that? Was it really that good? And because listen, I've said it about things that Meltzer, Keller, Alvarez, blah blah, insert whatever, busted open. It happens as well. You know, if you hear something enough, does it become true because you've heard it so much? Now, I enjoyed the segment. I'm not arguing with that.
I enjoyed the segment.
But you could argue there were other things on other shows that were bigger moments. I'm not saying they were. I'm saying you could argue
There were good
them.
moments. There were good moments on other shows. You can't fight that. But this was such a character development moment.
Yeah.
It was such a coming out party for Roman and as that character, and Solo and Sami and Jay, and everybody had such an important role. It's the best I've seen of the Bloodline yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most entertaining segments I've seen from the Bloodline. I will give you that. But thinking, look, let's kind of change direction. Some things that some people, pro and con, you know, this whole White Rabbit thing has kind of progressed over the weeks. And again, we fully want to disclose out the fact that we're recording this on Sunday. Even if we recorded on Monday, by the way, it would have been prior to Raw, because that's kind of where we've gotten into that groove. But last week on Raw, so we're going back, you know, a week from when we're recording, we got the QR code, and essentially it had 9/23, and everybody assumed that meant the White Rabbit thing was going to pay off on SmackDown. Well, on SmackDown, we got a QR code that led to a mini game, which led you to the coordinates for where Raw is going to be this week. By the way, I did find it ironic. Somebody pointed out that at 9:23 p.m. on SmackDown, somebody walked through the crowd with that QR code, so it was probably the time and not even the date. So that was kind of interesting to me, to say the least.
Thank you, people that are solving these mysteries for me, so I don't have to do all this stuff, because that's a lot of hard work for wrestling, in my opinion. It's a lot of it's intriguing. Don't get me wrong, it's intriguing, but it's a lot of work.
I will say this, Myron, and let me know if you agree with this. I also cannot lie that I find it very creative. That if this is the route they're taking to do this, that it is very creative. Now, I will make the same, because, you know, I always like to try to play fair here. I also will come back, though, and say, are they getting a little too inside? It's not inside baseball in the sense of like, oh, it's stuff that's behind the wall. But what about a casual fan? But here, am I underestimating a casual fan? To me, probably is more hip to the QR code thing than they are. Oh, I have to watch Being the Elite, or I have to know what the dirt sheets are saying for this angle to make sense.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe. Huh. I never thought. I literally just talked myself out on my, like, are they getting too cute with the QR code? But QR code, I mean, hell, that's how you get your menu now when you go to a restaurant. It's
gotten to the point, it's where you get everything nowadays.
Yeah.
It's I go to a doctor's office that has a QR code on the door for you to know what to do. Folks, if you ain't keeping up with technology, it's going to run the hell off on you. But I don't know where this is going, Nick. Where's the payoff? When are they going to pay off?
Well, you know, look, I know they're teasing something for Raw. I just don't think, I don't think you get a real payoff. I don't think we're going to get it on a Raw, and I don't think we're going to get it on a SmackDown. That's just my opinion. I think you're either going to get a payoff at Extreme Rules, or even all the way out to the, you know, Crown Jewel, potentially.
When is Extreme Rules again?
Extreme Rules in like a couple weeks.
Okay.
So they could bait them along for a couple weeks, and then you could, you know, but look, Crown Jewel's a long way off. However, I would think that, because look, I think it's inevitable that Bray Wyatt returns. I have been convinced that he is the one coming back. I'm not saying this is his return. I think it is, but I'm not saying this is it. A lot of people, between like the little lanterns and the Extreme Rules backdrop of Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Here's the crazy thing. I had actually had somebody tell me that that's when it was going to happen before I saw that picture. Like that the interference was going, or something was going to happen like in that match. And so that creeped me out when that poster came out. And it was in there. So that just kind of completely freaked me out.
You think it's Bray, or is it Cross?
I think it's Bray. I think it's Cross or both. I could see, because if he's going to, I mean, could imagine that faction with Bray, Cross, and Scarlett.
Well, somebody better give Scarlett Hunter James's phone number, because she missed with that fireball like by a foot. Hunter James could hit that thing and burn you real good with it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, that kind of stuff happens when because I was trying to read that. Yeah, well, and if it's the paper has to react right and all that, so it's not even just her throwing it; is if the paper doesn't. Yeah.
I'm teasing on that. But they did like the best of it. They got the good angle, and they got out of there, and they got set up for Extreme Rules. So I was happy with the finish on that match.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Well, I would love to know what the listeners think. At Tapped Out Pod on social media, tappedoutpod@gmail.com is the preferred way to let us know what you think of what's the payoff for this whole White Rabbit thing. Is it Bray? Is it Cross? Is it all the above? I mean, is it a new faction or what? And I also would love to know this too, Myron. Is anybody going to be disappointed if it's neither?
That's going to be wild if it's not either one and you get this weird new thing. Yeah, that could be pretty cool.
So, I don't know. But anyway, if you want to do something that is fun, Myron.
What's that?
Check out our friends over at slowpoketoys.com and hear what they've got to say this week as we talk about our friends over at slowpoketoys.com. Hey guys, Nick here at the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, and I'm here to remind you about our friends over at slowpoketoys.com. We told you about them a while back when they made their huge debut up there in Nashville at StarCast, and we told you then it was just the beginning. Boy, we weren't kidding. Since then, they've gone on to add some new items, and you missed them. Did you miss them? Well, why? All you got to do is make sure you're giving them a follow over on all their social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter or more, at Slowpoke Toys. Or, man, just go straight to the source. Go right to the website, slowpoketoys.com. And don't miss out on all the cool indie wrestling collectibles, pins, stickers, magnets, and more. They've even got some more cool stuff coming for Christmas. That's why you want to make sure you're giving them a follow on all their social media platforms. Again, at Slowpoke Toys on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. How involved are they? Man, they've already been working with promotions like AEW Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Revolver, ACW Wisconsin, Black Pro Wrestling, and more. That's right, man. They're making a big dive into the indie wrestling market. And if you're an indie wrestling fan, or you got that special somebody who's an indie wrestling fan, make sure you're giving them a follow at Slowpoke Toys on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And again, check them out right on that website at slowpoketoys.com. That's right, man. Check out our friends over at slowpoketoys.com. Get some of that cool merch that they've got, the stickers, the magnets, the pins, everything and more. And they keep announcing stuff. I know they got some special stuff coming up for Christmas, so that's why you want to give them a follow on, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Slowpoke Toys, and of course, right there on the website at slowpoketoys.com. So,
well, I got to make out my Christmas list, then. I can't wait. Those people have been so nice to us. It's been a pleasure doing business with them.
Absolutely agree. But man, talking about taking care of business, this past week on Dynamite, they had the big Grand Slam event there in Arthur Ashe, and of course, there you see the picture, the final paid off of Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW Championship, and Jon Moxley is your new AEW champion. And look, it was they had the tournament over the stretch of weeks to get to there. Let me ask you a question. So, Jon Moxley's now a 3-time champion. Bryan Danielson is a 0-time champion. So a lot of people were going both ways, but I want to go with a positive. Let me ask you this. Was this just a reward? And I don't mean this in a negative way. Is this the reward for the leadership that he stepped up? I mean, because that next week after the whole debacle happened at All Out, Jon Moxley strolled out on the Dynamite and cut a hell of a promo and got that company right back. And then, he canceled his vacation. He did all the above, stepped into that leadership role. Like, is this a reward for saying, is Jon Moxley the guy?
He is the guy that's basically put the company on his back in this time of hardship. Okay. He had a 6-week vacation coming up. You know how hard it is to plan that stuff and then cancel it all? God, no talking about deposits and all that other stuff. So he comes back. I'm sure Tony Khan has rewarded him highly, but he came back in time of need. He got the company through this. And we know this, all that crap is still not over yet. We'll see how it plays out later. But I got to give him credit, man. That was a big move. That was a real big move. Thank you.
You know, and then, you know, like a lot of people, like I addressed it a second ago. People are upset that Danielson lost, that was the perfect opportunity. Because here's, you know, one take on it was, you know, some people were saying you could have let Danielson win. Moxley could have went off and had his vacation, and you could have kind of moved forward. And I understand that. But there's also a lot to be said for, like, hey, this dude did this for us. We're going to, you know, we'll get him down the road, right?
Yeah.
But then my other take on the reason why I thought that, because, listen, I think, like, you know, a lot of people's next question is, where do we go from here and what's the next step? And my take is always like, well, how do we get to MJF? Because that's where we're heading. I don't see how we go anywhere else. That's clearly got to be where we're heading.
Exactly.
So my take on it is, for whatever it's worth, and that's not much, I always say, if Danielson had won and MJF cashes in and beats him pretty quickly, is that more damaging than Moxley winning his third one? MJF cashing in, you know, his chip and winning. Maybe he does something to injure Mox, and Moxley gets to go on his vacation, and then Danielson gets a run versus MJF, you know, to kind of avenge his Blackpool Combat Club member Moxley while he's gone, and he gets to go enjoy his vacation. So
no good guys got to be heels. You get this thing worked out. MJF is a worthy champion, in my opinion. I assume it would be easier to lose your third title than to win your first one. So go ahead. See how it works out. They did a lot of good stuff on this show.
I don't think losing his third title reign in that fashion damages him as much as if Bryan Danielson had won it and then a couple of weeks later he's losing it.
Yes.
That's the only reason I went down that route in my head. So I don't know. I'm you know, but like I think kudos that both the guys were in the finals. We had talked about it like off air, and that's kind of where I thought they were heading. But then I was like, I kind of had talked myself out of it. I was like, they clearly can't go there, but that's where they went.
I got something for you, Nick. We don't have it all on the notes. Jericho as the Ring of Honor champion.
Yeah.
Where are they going with that? What are they doing with that?
And you're right. This isn't in the notes. This isn't anything. We're literally, you completely caught me off guard on this one. But I was talking to somebody about this, and it's a weird take in that Jericho was your first champion, and that made total sense, right, when they got launched, because he was the biggest name they had. If you're trying to get the Ring of Honor brand off the ground again, listen, no disrespect intended towards Jonathan Gresham, Claudio Castagnoli, Cesaro, you know, because that's just it. He's not Cesaro. So that name's not recognized like he was, even as Cesaro across globally. Chris Jericho will brand that Ring of Honor. Bully Ray tweeted like right after that match that now that more people like that he created more credibility to that title than it's ever had in its history. And some of your diehard wrestling, you know, purists like, oh, they lost their shit about that. But he's not wrong. Like more people would be like, Ring of Honor, wait, what? What is that? He's the Ring of Honor. The same exact thing they did when AEW crowned him as the you know, the champion. When people were like, oh wait, Chris Jericho, what's AEW? And had to know. So if they are getting a show or an outlet at some form and fashion, Chris Jericho's your world champion with the smartest damn move they could probably make.
People will tune in to see Chris Jericho.
Correct.
Okay. People know the name Chris Jericho. Building name recognition is so important in entertainment, and especially in wrestling. So
yeah. But they also had, by the way, somebody else show up who had a hell of a name value for a very long time.
Yes.
and that is Saraya / Paige / Color, whatever. She debuted. To me, this took an interesting twist as well. For Dynamite, we're not typically. By the way, I just realized we're typically not like this happened on Raw, this happened on SmackDown, and it very much seems to be that it was sweet because there were so many, I think, important things that happened. But for one, the reaction she got was just outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And
very popular.
Look, the pop came across on television, and everybody that you listened to that was in the building says it was even better live than it came off on TV.
Mm-hmm. I don't doubt that at all. Don't doubt that at all.
The thing that I was dangerously close to this and had to catch myself. The whole thing about is she medically cleared and blah blah blah, and I had to step back for a moment and tell myself, enjoy the freaking moment. It was such a cool moment that she was even there.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to sometimes pull the reins back on yourself to not go into well, what does it mean? If she's not medically cleared, then does it even matter? And then you're like, but she's there. She's back on TV. Yeah. She's back in wrestling. And as crazy as it sounds, Myron, it doesn't matter because if she's not medically cleared, she'll be a tremendous asset to them behind the curtain. Think about when she managed in WWE.
They brought her back for a reason.
Sure.
We don't know what the reason is. We'll see down the road. Enjoy it. If we get to see her wrestle, awesome. If we don't, still awesome. You get to see her, and she could be a commentator. She could be somebody that helps get their women's division over. And that's a name, once again, that you would put in there and help your women's division and help mentor your women's division and continue to give it more credibility.
Right.
She could form a faction. She could do all kind of stuff.
I know she recently put out a social media post that said, "Don't believe everything you hear. I'll see you Wednesday."
Well,
so I'm hoping she's cleared to wrestle. I'd love to see her back in the ring, but one, I want her to be healthy. I don't want her to get re-injured. But if she's not medically cleared, who cares? Let's see what they're going to do with her and see where it goes. Because that's to me always the most important thing. And her health is the biggest thing. But if your health is your biggest concern, Myron,
yes,
who should you check out?
Athletic Greens.
Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted more energy and I wanted to see what was all the hype about. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, even aging. I personally use it because when I started this keto fasting diet I'm on, I was worried about the energy I was going to have. Not now. It supports better sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity, even alertness. By the way, it's cheaper than getting all the different supplements that's in this thing. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews and even recommended by professional athletes. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient and daily nutrition. It's one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements that you're looking to look out for your health. So to make it easy for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit their website at athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. That's right, man. Athletic Greens. Easy for me to point because, the camera thing always throws me. But yeah, check out our friends over at athleticgreens.com/emerging and, jump on that health train, man, and try to do your best there and get things right.
And follow our sponsors on social media. Find them on Twitter, find them on Facebook, Instagram, and look at what they got to offer, folks.
Absolutely. Supporting them supports the show, especially if you're using the codes and all that good stuff like that as well. Speaking of codes, speaking of like bro codes, the locker room code, we're going to address this. We're going to get into the CM Punk / Elite thing.
It's changed again. Has it changed again?
Not a ton. There's some. But I do want to say, like, look, essentially, like, this is hopefully the last time we're going to talk about this for a little while. Because, listen, until, like, there's really some major changes, it just seems like a lot of,
we banning it from the show.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Unless there's, I can't say that because God knows what'll happen in the next week. And then as of right now, there's so much secondhand and rumor. And it's like, look, we were having conversations with some of the guys at, Anarchy last night. And it was just a matter of like, man, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. It's just, like I said, it's just, I just don't know. Other than how it affects the product, I might reference it in that sense of like, it's causing this issue. But as far as the locker room, like a rumor stuff, I don't know that I have much concern for it anymore.
Honestly, I'd rather watch that stuff with like the Cash Money players and Swerve, Street Profits, and what's that other group?
Hit Row.
I'd rather watch that crap.
Yeah.
Than pay attention to this, folks. That's at least funny at times.
Yeah.
This is tragic and sad. I want it to be over. Okay. Right. I want this and I don't want anybody to go to the WWE. I want them to stay where they are. And I mean, except for Punk, they'll probably get rid of Punk and somehow end this whole thing.
Well,
get Punk out of the picture.
Well, let me ask you this, because that's basically the biggest chunk of news for this past week was that there is talk of a potential buyout of his contract to get him out, just to go ahead and get him go away, pay him, be done.
The best thing Punk's ever done for his career was not wrestle and be absent. Okay, seriously. He builds up that whole thing. It's like a mysticism. CM Punk. Oh, and then then a month later, after he disappears again, you're going to go to WWE show and hear CM Punk. It's ridiculous. Let the guy go. Let's not idolize this guy. I'm not going to say he's the villain, or I'm not going to say he's the good guy in this, but it's just too much drama.
Yeah, the best takeaway. I was having a conversation with somebody at the show last night at Anarchy, and it was like, I had made the comment of like, my statement a year ago ages pretty well about CM Punk, about when he signed, that I was like, well, it's great. They're going to do some business, but will it really be anything in 6 months to a year? And here we are going, oh, it's something, but it ain't good.
It ain't selling.
Well, look, I know he sold a shit ton of merch on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Oh, yeah.
My argument to that is...
hold on. Who owns Pro Wrestling Tees?
What do you mean, who owns Pro Wrestling Tees?
Colt Cabana.
No, he doesn't, does he?
Yeah, he does. He's part of it.
Well, he may be involved. I don't know. He owns it all.
He's selling stuff and probably putting the money in his mother's checking account.
Here's the funny part. You know what's ironic to that? And I'd heard he put a statement out on social media kind of like this. Before my father passed away, you know what I mean? You're kind of like...
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, everybody at one time in their life is going to have to do that to their parents.
But, yeah, because they're like, oh, he shared a bank account with his mother. Why? Like, have you looked into why? I mean, just to say that blanket statement's not necessarily, a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, I don't want to sidebar onto that. But, the whole takes of, I don't know. But I'm with you, man. Look, if they buy his contract and he goes away, I don't think it hurts it doesn't hurt their viewership. I don't know that it hurts them money-wise. I think they are what they are. They draw who they draw, and so forth and so on.
And let's see what they can do with it.
Yeah.
Is there a storyline there? Is it going to come back and you're going to use it? Are Kenny Omega and the Bucks all of a sudden going to be like the Punk Busters or something, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know.
But as far as the rumors of like, Kenny and the Bucks want to go to WWE, I think. So I thought when this all happened, I thought Kenny was like prior to AEW. I thought Kenny was the most likely to go to WWE before, because I thought I had heard Kenny versus AJ at WrestleMania, and then you got like, hey, you could set up him versus Nakamura, who at the time was, kind of on fire. And then I think there's some, even like I honestly, I would, as much as I know a lot of people think I don't like Kenny Omega, I would like to see Kenny Omega and Randy Orton. Like, I'd love to see that match. I would. I think they could have a great match, because I think Randy would WWE him to an extent, and I think he would elevate Randy even more, like to push the envelope a little bit in a match. Kind of like Seth Rollins did when Seth pushed him a little bit. Yeah. I know, right? Like, everybody's probably surprised by that statement, but I think he could be. Yeah. The Bucks, until the WWE proves to me that tag team wrestling means anything more than it's where the Usos' playground is, and they just consistently beat people, I need more than one tag team. If I were the Bucks, I would come to the realization, if you went to the WWE, your best place would be in NXT.
Yeah. And
not on the main roster. But by the way, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but that's what I see them as. That style. But the, NXT version that Triple H had. So I don't really particularly want to see any of them go there either. But
it's not hate. It's just I don't see them fitting in. I don't see it being they weren't going to be used correctly.
Yeah. Kenny, I do. I think Kenny, as much as he gets banged up because of the style he wrestles, I think it would do him good to become I don't think he's like, he hasn't achieved enough to earn in the WWE's eyes. I'm not saying outside of that, but in the WWE's eyes, enough to be a part-timer. But a lighter schedule, wrestling a more WWE style, could prolong his career a little bit more than going out there and trying to bang himself around. It's like he does in AEW. So, but hopefully that's the last we have to talk about this. Like, I hope they just buy the contract out. Punk goes away. By the way, I don't know that. I can't even imagine him swallowing his pride and going to the WWE. I just can't see it.
Punk, no.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of money.
Yeah.
Just go somewhere and hang out.
Yeah. Well, especially if he gets a buyout. I mean, so yeah. I mean, there's that take. And then but that hopefully that's it. Until we get those final resolutions, hopefully that's it on this whole Punk versus the Elite backstage.
Amen.
For now. Because let's talk about some positive stuff.
Yes.
So last night we hopped up into the car, we rode up to Cornelia, and we're going to discuss what you see right there on the screen there. Mr. Nick Halen is now your Landmark Arena Heritage Champion. We're going to get to that in a second, because we went up to like I said, up to Anarchy Wrestling, Fire on the Mountain in the Landmark Arena there in Cornelia. Man, what a freaking show.
Oh, it was great. It was electric from the first match. Excuse me. Hell, we walked in, and there was a pre-show match I didn't even know about, and the crowd was eating that up. Just absolutely eating it up. So there were a lot of guys in that pre-show match that are right there. They are just about to take off. They're about to get on main rosters everywhere. It was a pleasure to watch that, even though I didn't catch all of it. Pre-show matches on indie shows. How crazy is that? But, dude, it was a complete show. They started off and set the whole damn place on fire, and it just rode the wave until the big pop started, like, coming toward the end of the show. It was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, from beginning to end, like you said, but I'll work my way backwards. Main event, the program versus the undeniable. So it's Hunter James, Proc the Croc Johnson, Scott Mason versus Matt Hankins, Shane Marks, Brian Blaze. This thing had been building and building and this is about as old school, and look, I know this was old school Southern wrestling as it gets, in the sense that it was built, and built until finally, like, we had to do this thing in a cage.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to be done, and it has to be over. It was brutal. I mean, it was within minutes. Hunter James is busted open. And he's got to work the whole way, because it was kind of a War Games-ish in the sense of all the way through until the end. The match couldn't end. So it was brutal.
Blood-soaked blonde hair.
Yeah.
Flared, dusty. It was just so unique, and it looked so good. He got the hard way. He bled a lot. Oof. And then Hankins is always a great performer. I think many people forget how good a performer Scott Mason is. Okay. He's the heel. He does such a great job as the heel. All the wrestling was great. It was brutal beatdown wrestling. It wasn't technical wrestling. I think you can't do this every week, but when you do it, it's got that special feeling to it.
But it leads to the question, Myron, is it over? Undeniable he said it was over, but we'll have to see. And in part 2 of this, you brought up Scott Mason. There were moments in the match where Hunter want to go to a place that Scott wasn't comfortable going or didn't want to go, and it showed like a little bit of crack in the armor of the program. Like, is there trouble there?
It might be. It's a very harsh place in there. So maybe emotions ran too high. I don't know the answer to that question, but it looked bad for the program.
Yeah. Taking an L is never good. But when you see a little bit of dissension and a loss, it's really not a good look. And for months, I mean, probably arguably almost a year, the program's run that building. So we're going to have to see come the next show if where they stand. There's one thing.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the next part that we know where everything stands, because this has taken months to get there.
Man.
Nick Halen and Joe Black had a best-of-3 series to crown. Well, Joe Black was your champion, but the Landmark Arena Heritage Championship. And a lot of people like, why is this a big deal for me? Like, because for me in my head, the lineage goes back all the way to the NWA Wildside. Like that building, and I get it. Like, it's not, but it is, and we've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Like, it's funny, like him or not, he's one of the best wrestlers in the state of Georgia, right? Nick Halen.
I've heard that said before.
Yeah, it's and it's one of those like, okay, the guy is a champion.
Yes.
He's just got to, grab gold to prove what we all knew. And for him to do that in that building with that title, and here's one of the most important parts that a lot of people might, have to hear against that opponent. Yeah. Like, there are times you can win a title and it's not the right guy to, but to beat a Joe Black, this is not debatable, who's one of the, if not the best wrestler in the state of Georgia.
Man, he did such a good job putting Nick over, and the way the match ended, it was, everything was out. They had a high flying, they had a brutal brawl, everything you could want in a wrestling match. These guys did it, and they looked so good doing it. Joe is such a professional man, much admiration for him, but he set the stage to make this such a big event. And last month when we went and it was supposed to be the third match and we didn't get it, you'd think that'd make you angry, but it just made you want it more. So by the time you got to this match tonight, last night, and probably the most comfortable temperature in that Landmark Arena of all time.
I love Landmark in the fall. Landmark in the fall and spring is awesome, and I tell people that's why you got to go see it. But real quick before we move on, I had this on my brain about Joe. And here's why it works so well. Joe Black is probably one of the most intense individuals. Yeah. Like, it's one of those when you see him, like, here's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, it's because he's so convincingly. I don't know that he's just not that intense. Like, he is that intense. Yes. So it's not like he's not working. He's literally that intense. And to see that kind of energy, the intensity, again, but it goes back to so with the win, That's what makes it so much more impressive. And in one moment when, Nick Halen stands up, like you're like instantly his status in Georgia just where we already thought it was, I think is even higher because now he's not only got a championship, but a championship victory over somebody like Joe Black. Look, now there's another guy there in Anarchy who is carrying gold, and he's the Anarchy heavyweight champion, and that is Jeter.
Oh.
And after watching him with Jacob Ashworth, man, I don't know. He looks like a monster who just cannot be stopped at Anarchy. I don't know who's the guy that can stop him.
I don't know what Austin Towers is doing. He made his debut last night, or return last night. Is he in a faction? What's going to happen? That's probably the best guy they got, and I don't know. Jeter's on fire. Jeter's just, and he's so intense. He's so brutal. It looks like he's just intent on hurting people, and that's scary. He's a giant of a man.
We love to throw around like lists and things like that, and we love to hear like, is it possible that Jeter as the Anarchy heavyweight champion is underrated?
I don't know of anyone who's ever got into a match with him who wasn't at least pushed to their limit. Jeter may not get the publicity.
That's what I'm saying. Like, does he not get the love that he deserves in the state of Georgia?
No, he doesn't. Definitely not. Definitely not. He's probably one of the top 10 badasses, maybe top 5 just badasses. Giant of a man who knows wrestling rules, who knows psychology, best facial expressions. The best facial expressions you will ever see on a wrestler, Jeter does. He sells like nobody's business. I believe if he got more exposure, I think he could be much bigger. So,
But then there's the other kid on the show. It's funny because the wife went because she loves a couple of guys on the shows. We're not going to point them out. They know who they are, and she obviously knows who they are. But Jay Too Strong as a character, like, is so good. The chain and the wrench and the boots and the, the total.
I totally marked out for that.
Yeah, the Too Strong gimmick and all that. But you almost forget at times how freaking good the kid is.
Very
like
talented.
When he starts going, you're like, oh shit, this kid can wrestle. I forget that sometimes. My prediction is it's not into the distant future that there's the gold around Jay Too Strong's waist as well.
And now he's got a corner man too.
Couple. I mean, he's got a couple of them. Hanson and Azrael, that you talked about, started the show off just on fire.
Jesus Christ.
They brawled.
They just did a brawl.
Yeah.
Almost fell on my lap, scared the hell out of me, got me jumping up. Violent, just violent. There was that was the theme of the night, was just violence. And it was
I don't know,
awesome.
Would you say violence or intensity? Like I said, that might have been the intense. Everything was intense all night long.
Well, it's like they were going to kill each other. It's like I thought Hanson and Azrael were trying to kill each other. And that's captivating. And that's something I like to watch.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of things I like to watch, there's something coming up down the road. There has been Tail. Skrilla the Great was on the card. He worked, and he's obviously in the faction with Jeter as well. I keep telling people about how good he is. Now, there's tale of this match that I completely did not get to go to, and I'm furious at myself, that happened at Deep South, that he had a match with Najasism that has become a thing of lore as of recently. And, like, even to the point, like, I'm trying to get a copy of this match so we can do a watch-along on it.
We might have been sleeping on Deep South. That might be something we have to look into.
Yeah. So check them out, by the way, on Facebook, Deep South Wrestling. I think it's something that you definitely want to check out here in the Atlanta, in the Georgia area as well. So, but look, we had a great time at Anarchy last night. More stuff coming up down the road. Give them a follow, by the way, on their social media, Anarchy Wrestling. Give them a check out. They wrestle in the house that AJ Styles built, the Church of Southern Wrestling. The names go on and on.
They were rocking last night. People were stomping their feet, beating the barricades. It was wild. And I had a guy sitting next to me who was a tremendous wrestling fan. He had his own signs. It was just crazy.
Yeah,
just crazy.
And you look, we'll probably get some watch along stuff from that show as well. And listen, when we get the watch along stuff, man, it's gonna be on YouTube first. So become a paid member, over there on YouTube.com. Just check it out. Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, Tapped Out Podcast Network, and give us a file. Sign up there, and you'll get it days and maybe even weeks. Hell, I haven't decided how far out we're gonna record some of this stuff and start putting it in there, so you'll be able to have it before that. But again, YouTube.com, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. Check it out. Become a member there. Turn on your notifications. That's the big one. So that way you get stuff as soon as it comes out. And then, of course, as always, if you're a podcast listener, check us out on iHeartMedia, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, anywhere and everywhere there's a podcast platform. I assure you we are there. So make sure you're giving us a subscribe if you're a podcast listener, and then giving us that 5-star rating and review. We would greatly appreciate that, man. But again, man, another great week. Lots of good stuff. Here's the thing, man. I am so fired up when the stuff that's on TV's good and has us talking. The shows we're going to, they're good and have us talking. That is the absolute best time in pro wrestling.
Every time you start to wane about professional wrestling, you get out there and go to a show, you get fired back up, you watch some TV, and when you watch TV and it's good, Nick, that is so awesome. That is just absolutely so awesome. And the TV has been great lately. Yeah. The TV has been absolutely wonderful.
Both shows, by the way. Both shows. That's the positive.
And Impact, I was watching the Victory Road. They've got their Big Bound for Glory show coming up. I was excited watching that. I haven't got it finished yet. Folks, there's good wrestling everywhere.
I'm with you, man. Again, check out everything, dude. More stuff coming. Hopefully some comic books, some movies, some TV, some sports, fantasy stuff, all this stuff extra. That's all going to be on the YouTube channel. The podcast will stay straight, the wrestling podcast. Follow us and all that good stuff there. We would greatly appreciate that. But anything else, man, before we get out of here?
No, I'm a happy wrestling fan. I look forward to getting to do watch-alongs. I really enjoy that. I love to be able to get attention drawn to people who wrestle in Georgia or wrestle independent, and just so other people can enjoy them as much as I do. I really appreciate these guys busting their asses to give us such quality entertainment.
Yep, I agree. Well, man, if you don't have anything else, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.